introduction of a number of administrative restrictions for the period of structural transformations aimed at protecting domestic producers and creating preferential conditions for the sale of their products. Among the main measures in research in the field of foreign trade of Kyrgyzstan and Korea, it's necessary to highlight that meet the rules and regulations of the World Trade Organizations, reducing export contracts and currency control, and introducing a unified system of foreign trade and currency control and accounting on this basis. In this context, the foreign economic threat can be a real significant factor in restructuring of Kyrgyz-Korean relations, the restoration and growth of production potential. Also, to facilitate the economic interaction of the parties, a joint Kyrgyz-Korean bank will be created in Kyrgyzstan, or a branch of Korean bank could be opened to facilitate financial transactions. Cultural and humanitarian cooperation. The development of cultural and humanitarian ties is an important component of Kyrgyz-Korean relations and meets the interests of the two peoples and states. Close cooperation is a cultural, humanitarian, and educational spheres, maintaining active contacts at the level of the creative intellectuals, scientific circles, contribute to the creation of a common atmosphere of harmony, tolerance, and friendship between the two peoples and states, which has a positive effect on other areas of interstate cooperation. Intercultural ties between the two republics have deepened significantly over the past 10 years. The consequence of this is the Open National Library of Kyrgyzstan in 2013. The main goal of the center is to popularize the culture, art, tradition, history of Korea to assist in the study of Korean language. Today, Korean culture in Kyrgyzstan is very popular. Everyday cultural and humanitarian contacts are strengthening and expanding. In particular, it's worth noting the agreement on cooperation in the field of labor migration. Citizens of Kyrgyzstan are regularly sent to Korea and they have good opportunities to experience advanced technologies and gain useful skills. All of the above mentioned creates good conditions for further comprehensive strengthening of cultural ties between our countries. Kyrgyzstan also interested in historical experience of Korea in building a modern, highly developed state with an open, dynamic civil society. And in this context, the activities of the Korean International Cooperation Agency should be noted, which in short period of full-fledged functioning in Kyrgyz Republic is actively implementing projects that are of great importance for the state and society and agriculture. The introduction of biometric passport, increasing the potential of electoral system and human resources. Also, it's worth noting the assistance of implementation of reforms under the Technical Assistance Program, within the framework of which, through the Korean International Cooperation Agency, financial and technical assistance is provided to the ministries and departments of the Kyrgyz Republic. And in conclusion, let me say, apart from historical ties and the presence of strong Korean diaspora in Kyrgyzstan, there are additional factors that can contribute to strengthening cooperation. This is the membership of the Kyrgyz Republic in the Eurasian Economic Union and its location, practically on one of the main sections of the Great Silk Road, as well as tourist attraction of the Republic. In general, today Kyrgyz Republic and the Republic of Korea are quite active in their contacts, and despite a long period of cooperation, unfortunately the relations between the countries do not yet match the existing potential. And Kyrgyzstan and Korea have passed a thorny historical path and have gone through a number of difficult times. Despite this, each of these countries is rich and unique in its own way. Each of these countries strives to make the country even better, and this unites us. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Manas Aspeko. And thank you for punctual timekeeping. Well, you have gave us a broad scope of the Korea-Kyrgyzstan bilateral relationship between culture to historical perspective to the contemporary old issues. So hope we can have a good debate later on by Professor Roshan. And I would like to invite our next speaker. We will move on. I think we're on the right track for the time. So I would like to invite Dr. Boram Singh from the Jeonbuk University. The title is about Science and Technological Cooperation as a Korea's Public Diplomacy in Central Asia. So you have 20 minutes from 2:30 to 2:15. So are you going to do it over there?
Yeah, I'm going to stay. I mean, if it's okay, then I'll stay here. Or is it better just me?
여기서 해야 되잖아요.
아니, 그 슬라이드가 좀 많이 바뀌어가지고, 네, 아마 제 컴퓨터로 조정하는 게 나을 것 같아요.
그렇게 하세요.
네,
네, alright.
써내주세요.
Yeah, alright.
Right, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to make a presentation. My presentation's title is Science and Technology Cooperation as South Korea's Public Diplomacy in Central Asia. This is what I will be presenting today is a result of a 2-year international interdisciplinary collaboration which revisited the past and present of science diplomacy in Eurasia. So let me begin by explaining what science and technology diplomacy is and how it is similar or can be considered as a component of public diplomacy. The accelerated globalization since the 1990s and rapid technological advancements, especially in communication information technology, have created a closely connected world and brought significant changes to the international system. They introduce new challenges of global scale, including global pandemics, climate change, poverty eradication, and internet governance, which require international cooperation and scientific expertise to solve. Furthermore, the increased connectivity decentralized the international system and diversified its stakeholders and actors. A state's influence is no longer measured only in terms of its military or economic might, that is, its hard power, but it is also measured in its ability to attract and persuade, in other words, its soft power. Diplomacy, too, is no longer limited to closed-door negotiations between professional diplomats and state leaders. Public diplomacy or people diplomacy is conducted by private citizens and institutions participating in government-sponsored efforts to directly communicate and influence foreign public. Scientific and technological collaboration has been practiced as a form of public diplomacy even during the Cold War. The notion that science is objective, universal, and apolitical has made science an effective public diplomacy tool. The launch of Sputnik, for instance, in 1957 was widely promoted as a representation to showcase the advanced and more superior socialist system constructed by the Soviet Union, while the 1969 moon landing of American astronauts caused much global fascination and reaffirmed the United States status as the most technologically advanced nation. So aerospace science and technology thus became a colder battlefield where countries competed for national prestige and global respect. Yet the attempt to define science and technology diplomacy as a concept for academic inquiry had been made only recently. In 2010, the British Royal Society and American Association for the Advancement of Science jointly published the report that you see on the slide, in which they attempted to define 3 major realms or types of science and technology diplomacy. So the first realm is science in diplomacy, where science or scientific or technological advice are provided for foreign policy objectives. This would be an example of this would be like environmental scientists advising diplomats in their negotiations for strategies for countering the climate change. Second they defined was science for diplomacy, where science cooperation is used to improve international relations between countries. Science for diplomacy, which is the third term, facilitates international science cooperation through means of diplomatic negotiation. So these are the three major by the Royal Society and AAAS. Science has become a global collaborative enterprise in the increasingly globalized world. The image on the slide is a visualization of global scientific collaborations produced by extracting author-affiliation data from co-author papers published in Nature Journal in 2014. It demonstrates that even though the field is still dominated by European and North American countries, which are in blue and red, the network is continuously expanding, and that science and technology development today is a result of collaborative efforts that cross national borders and connect researchers. The study, based on more than 10 million articles published in 2014, tracked by Science Direct, which is a different scholarly database, about 21.3% of papers had international authors, compared to 10.7% in 2000. So we see the increasing or expanding of international collaboration in the production, in scientific and technological knowledge production. And here are some data on South Korea. These are the more recent data from last year, 2020. So here we see that South Korea's top partners are in North America and Western Europe. However, we also see some cooperation developing with Asian countries, including China, Japan, and India. It's not indicated here, but Russia is actually our 11th collaborative partner. So we see only a top 10 partners here, but Russia is actually very close to be one of our top 10 collaborative partners. A recent study shows that South Korea is attracting more researchers from abroad than the global average. Between 2017 and 2020, 4.3 to 4.9% of all academics in South Korea relocated from abroad. So this is higher than the global average, which is 3.7%. This chart shows the top 5 Korean institutions with the largest proportions of scholars from abroad. The study demonstrates that South Korea is making a headway toward creating a more diverse research environment, and that its efforts to end its comparative scientific isolation and integrate into the global knowledge network are bearing some results. So one of the pulling factors in the country's is the country's commitment to invest in research and development. The public and private sectors spend about 4.4 to 5% of country's GDP on R&D in 2019, which makes South Korea the 5th largest R&D spender among OECD countries. This commitment is also a driving force of South Korea's innovation. According to the Bloomberg 2021 Innovation Index, South Korea ranked the most innovative economy in the world. Researchers who study innovation systems often emphasize the close connection between government, industry, and academic community as the core cause of South Korea's success, which is often referred to as the miracle of the Han River. South Korea is a country that is keenly aware of the importance of international scientific and technological cooperation for economic growth due to its own experience of technologically driven development. South Korea's international scientific and technological cooperation from the 1950s to the present can be divided into roughly 6 different stages that we see on the slide. I'm not going to go into details about these stages. I just want to point out that broadly speaking, until the late 1980s, South Korea brought in foreign technologies through technological aid and technological transfer and technology purchased in order to rapidly industrialize its economy. However, from the 1990s, South Korea began its attempt to graduate from the catch-up phase and build a national innovation system on par with that of developed economies. From the 1990s, we see the development or the government's concentration on building or basic research capacity. That would be, so 1990 is actually what makes part of the hallmark or turning point in South Korea's engagement with international scientific and technological community. Okay. More recently, in 2019, so right before the COVID-19 crisis, the South Korean government announced the adoption of the science and technology diplomacy strategy for an inclusive state in order to engage more effectively with emerging diplomatic and security threats and intensify global technological competition by utilizing science and technology. So we see that the last period, or the most recent stage that we are at, is we are seeing the transformation of international scientific collaboration into more of a strategic science, technology, and ICT diplomacy. So that is the recent trend. So the science and technology diplomacy strategy includes 3 goals that we indicated on the slide. And it also incorporates 5 tasks that we see on the slide as well. The key characteristics of South Korea's ST and ICT diplomacy is that science and technology-driven development experience, which differentiates South Korea from other developed countries, became a hallmark, or it became something that South Korea builds its national brand or national image on. For the ST-ICT diplomacy. In addition, although currently South Korea is caught in the middle of the recent U.S. and China competition, or the so-called tech war, South Korea's middle power status and national image as an innovative nation without geopolitical agenda may help address South Korea's ST and ICT diplomacy goals in the region. So these are 2 key characteristics of South Korea's science diplomacy. Currently, South Korea's science diplomacy is conducted in 2 tracks. First, South Korea conducts diplomacy for science to promote bilateral and multilateral collaborative research with advanced countries in order to procure cutting-edge technology as well as to advance basic research, basic science research. And it is committed to science, technology ODA and technology assistance, which are pursued more often to improve relations with developing countries. These are the main areas that South Korea is concentrating in terms of its ST and ICT diplomacy. Let's move on to South Korea's science and technology cooperation with Croatia. So on this slide is the list of ongoing South Korean ODA projects in Uzbekistan, the Central Asian country that has been South Korea's key ODA partner in the CX region since 2011. So Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan have only recently been added as key ODA partners. This is the adoption of the 3rd ODA strategy this year. However, for today's presentation, I'm only going to focus on Uzbekistan. A significant number of projects involve technology and technical assistance, technology transfer, or technical assistance, including knowledge transfer, personal training, technical publication, and system development. However, for developing countries, technology transfer may be a faster, cheaper, and relatively foolproof way to introduce new technology and innovation. Yet in order to ensure long-term sustainability and independent development, assistance for R&D capacity building is also crucial. Moreover, international R&D collaboration tends to promote longer and more mutually beneficial partnership. So I'm going to explore some of the ways that South Korea could actually contribute in this area, in R&D capacity building. So R&D capacity has continued to decline in Uzbekistan since 1990. Uzbekistan's first domestic R&D expenditure, which was the highest in Central Asia until the late 1990s, as you see on the slide, has fallen significantly since the mid-2000s, which contributed to gradual decline in the number of researchers working in R&D in the country. In fact, the number of research institutes in Uzbekistan and Central Asia overall decreased more than twofold after the collapse. Many of the research institutes established during the Soviet times became obsolete as the new independent republic faced new economic and technological challenges. This was partly due to the fact that basic science research and applied science research had been institutionally separated in the Soviet innovation system. The formal, conducted mainly by academic institutions such as the Academy of Sciences, where the best talents were concentrated, while the latter was mainly conducted by responsive industrial ministries and state-owned enterprises. Such institutional framework created a disjunction between basic science research and technology development, and thus weakened commercialization efforts. With Central Asian countries implementing economic reforms to transition to market economy, applied industrial R&D previously done by state enterprises began to deteriorate, while the government-funded fundamental science research also declined due to lack of funding. So in order to improve the country's underlying science, technology, innovation ecosystem, the Uzbek government has implemented multiple strategies in order to build a sustainable national innovation system. In the most recently, in 2017, the Uzbek government established the Ministry of Innovative Development to lead the implementation of STI, or Science, Technology, Innovation Policies. The Ministry of Innovative Development is responsible for implementation of a unified state policy in the field of innovation, scientific and technological development, and evaluation of innovative activities and determination of main direction of relevant industries and identification of areas requiring priority implementation of advanced technology, and it is also responsible for coordinating activities of government research, information analytical institutions, and other organizations for STI development. In 2019, the Republican Council on Science and Technology was also established as an advisory body for the development of ST and the improvement of higher education. The most recent STI policy in Uzbekistan is defined in the presidential decree, which is entitled on approval of the strategy for innovative development of the Republic of Uzbekistan for 2019 and 2021, which was adopted in 2018. And these are and on the slide you see the specific goals that are set by the decree, which includes placing the country among the top 50 economies in the Global Innovation Index by 2030, quadrupling the GERD, which is gross domestic expenditure of R&D, from the current 0.2% to 0.2% of GDP to 0.8% of GDP by 2021, improving scientific excellence, which means building research capacity, and strengthening the link between education, science, and industry. These are the goals set by the most recent SDI policy of Uzbekistan. In short, and this is a picture of the newly founded established Ministry of Innovative Development. In short, Uzbekistan is on its way to develop a more comprehensive and holistic SDI policies and SDI governance institution. However, because STI roles assigned to different STI organizations, lack of researcher accountability, and lack of incentives for commercialization of research results. In addition, even though the current STI policies emphasize public sector participation and investment in R&D, the public sector itself is in its infant stages with nascent R&D capability, while technology transfer between research institutes and industries remain limited. Strengthening STI and STI policy and governance is also important for building sustainable international partnership in the field of science, technology, and innovation. There are many pilot projects and programs currently funded by international organizations and donor governments conducted in Uzbekistan. However, the majority of such projects sees with the end of donor funding without generating the desirable impact, even if they are proven to be feasible. These are some of the problems that Uzbekistan has. STI, governance, and R&D capacity building are areas South Korea and Uzbekistan need to continue collaborating. South Korea has not only experienced technology-driven economic growth supported by state-sponsored large R&D projects, but also successfully transitioned into a global innovator, as mentioned earlier. In addition, it also has the experience of working with other former Soviet countries and building the links between science research and industry through bilateral and multilateral scientific collaborations. For example, the CORSAT, which is the Korea-Russian Science Technology Center based in Moscow, and which was established actually in the early 1990s, has the experience of working with within post-Soviet innovation ecosystem and promoting R&D collaboration between Korean industries and businesses and the Russian Scientific Research Institute. While the STEPI, Science and Technology Policy Institute, runs science technology ODA programs on strengthening STI policies and governance with other formal Soviet countries, including Azerbaijan. So similar programs might benefit Uzbekistan build its research capacity and strengthen its STI governance. In fact, a similar program was actually conducted, a knowledge sharing program, in 2012, and few key recommendations are actually adopted. And I believe that now that Uzbekistan is developing or moving on to the next stage in SDI policy governance building, that such efforts should be continued. And I will conclude my presentation there. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Boranshin. Yes, Dr. Shin has given us a very interesting framework about science, technology, and ICT diplomacy, which I think that Korea has a very competitiveness among the other area. And also your comments say that Korea has competitiveness of ICT technology, but no geopolitical agenda. Perhaps this is the reason that why Korea has a more welcoming than any other countries in the region. Okay, maybe we will have more debate on the later on. So I think we are about at the right time, and so thank you very much for your professional timekeeping. And I think we have a last presenter from all around the England. I think Professor Dr. Irina Martinez Fernandez from the Institute for Statecraft London. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh yes, very clearly, but I cannot see you. Oh yeah, very nice. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm not actually currently in London. I'm based in Pakistan right now, doing some field work. So I'm a bit closer to you right now. So should I share my slides, or the slides will be given?
You can share your slide. You can control yourself over there.
Okay, perfect. Can you see them? Is it here?
Yes, very good.
Okay, perfect. So my presentation will be a bit different from the ones before. I will present MENA region and Central Asia. I actually believe that these are two I think very key areas as well for Korea. So I would like to present the relationships and where do they stand right now. So first of all, probably one of the main things that everybody could agree on is that they are both areas that have post-colonial history. However, this post-colonial history differs pretty much. The first thing that is important to comment is that the decline and the complicated nature of neocolonialism gave rise to an era where the main powers, today the USA and Russia in these two areas, are unable to impose their will on countries such as Iran, Iraq, or Afghanistan. Therefore, we actually see that the security providers of these areas are not as strong as in the colonial times the security strongholds were in these two areas. Of course, the divergence also come on the nature of the colonial structures. So when we actually look at the Middle East, there was not a lot of integration between the colonial empires and powers in these areas. However, the Soviet Union did actually have a much more stronger penetration in the social and cultural arenas of these countries. So, in order to actually understand a bit the relationship between Middle East and Central Asia, I identified certain vectors of connection, certain areas of mutual interest for these two regions. The first one is clearly the energy link. These areas are blessed or cursed with energy, and this is clearly an area where they have put their efforts in. The second vector of connection is Islam. Religion is something that we cannot forget, that it's still there, very much present, and it's actually used as a tool. The third area of connection is clearly China and the Belt and Road Initiative. China does play a role, a very important role in both areas, and will probably play a role in the near future as well. So we should actually keep in mind that China is going to be an important vector of connection. And lastly, of course, when we bring China to the picture, we have to bring great power competition. So besides China, of course, we have main powers such as Russia or the USA, but also regional powers such as Turkey and Iran that they are trying to influence both areas, Middle East and also Central Asia. So when we talk about the energy link, we clearly talk about regions that have two types of countries. They have energy rich and labor scarce countries, and energy importers and labor rich countries. So interestingly, when we talk about the energy link, we see that historically it has actually been different for these two regions. So on one side, Central Asia has relied a lot on Russia and also on Turkey to pass their energy resources to Europe, clear consumer for energy. However, this pattern has been changing over the years, and now it's China. They're their main consumer, and also China was welcomed in the beginning as a way to diversify their exposure to Russia and Azerbaijan and Turkey as a way to connect Central Asia to markets. In the case of the Middle East, this has been a bit different. Of course, they are not landlocked, therefore they do have access to trade routes, maritime trade routes, which has helped them to diversify. But in the last years, the pattern of relying on China has been extremely blatantly visual, where we actually see that China has not only created partnerships and is actually the main consumer of oil for Middle Eastern countries as well, but they are also starting to create operations, downstream operations and upstream operations as well in the Middle East. So this is something that Central Asian countries have been observing for a while, especially states that they're extremely weak, therefore there's not a strong institutional setting, and China has been winning international bids to control energy resources. This has been seen not only in the Middle East, but in Central Asia as as a way to observe patterns of behavior as well as FDI that is coming into it. So one of the things that might be interesting is to see how is the link actually connected the Middle East and Central Asia. At this point, the main provider of any kind of FDI or any kind of capital is coming from the Gulf countries. So mainly UAE and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has partnership with Turkmenistan. UAE has expanded Mubadala, which is their basic tool to conduct FDI outside of the region, has been strongly related to Kazakhstan and also Turkmenistan, and then trying to diversify energy projects in the region. So this is something interesting because while the two main countries of influence in Central Asia, coming from the Middle East, are Turkey and Iran, the two providers of FDI serious and sound projects are actually from the Gulf countries.